My husband was studying English history, and so he wanted to study with Thompson. And of course, anybody of my generation who was a historian who read that book, it changed their lives. The part of the book that I particularly loved in the introduction, along with the famous thing about rescuing the stockinger and all that, was that he thanked Dorothy Thompson, a historian with whom I'm related by the accident of marriage. And he doesn't thank her for raising the children and keeping the house clean. He thanks her for being a historian. And that was the first time I had ever read in a man's introduction treating the wife as if the wife was a scholar and something else than a wife. I mean, somebody should do a study of what men say about their wives. It's usually, and I just want to thank you for being there for me and keeping the kids out of my hair for the last 5 years. So Edward was at the University of Warwick, and there was a program. I had to find something to do while Cal studied, and I had applied for jobs through the University of Maryland. They had this wonderful program teaching history on U.S. Army bases. You got paid a ton of money, and you got the use of the PX. So it was a really great deal, and I'm very proud to say I didn't pass the security detail. So I'm very pleased about that. So they accepted me. There was an MA program in English, U.S. labor history. So Mel Dubofsky was teaching, and Edward was there. And it was the beginning of the women's movement in England. And that's when I joined a group called the International Socialists. And to give you an idea of what it was like, my MA group, there were 11 of us. 10 of us were in the IS, in this International Socialist group. And the other one was a social democrat of all things. So, I mean, it was a fabulous MA group. We were all close. And the women's movement had just come to England. And we had a very active socialist society. We, once a week, we leafleted automobile workers. Coventry was sort of the Detroit of England. And we leafleted and worked with automobile workers every week. We'd get up at 5 in the morning, and the guards at the automobile factory would bring this woman and I cups of tea because they didn't want us to be cold. And the group, it was called a branch, consisted, it was half students and half automobile workers. And the automobile workers loved the students. I mean, there wasn't any of the usual BS that sometimes goes on. And we founded this women's group on the campus called Coventry Women's Liberation. And Edward was very nervous about feminism. He comes out of a particular Stalinist Communist Party tradition, of which feminism wasn't part of it. And Americans made him nervous, younger women made him nervous, so the combination of a young American woman made him particularly nervous. When I was studying there, Germaine Greer was there. It was a very, very exciting time. So he was studying Shelley. Germaine was studying, Blake. So he would give a lecture on Blake, and then Germaine would give a lecture on Blake, and then he would give a lecture on Blake. I mean, the two of them were involved in this very intense Blake pissing contest. But you got a chance. I mean, you would have Hobsbawm and Roudet and Richard Cobb and, you name the social historian that you drop dead reading over. Everybody came. It was really, really exciting. I was doing my research on Sylvia Pankhurst, and they brought down a guy from the Scottish Communist Party who knew her, who's like 80-something years old. So it was really, to me, it was one of the best years combining activism and academic work. That's when I met and worked with Sheila Robotham. We became very good friends. We're good friends to this very day. And in the fall of '69, there was an academic conference at Ruskin, and they had a women's caucus, and we all decided to have a conference on women, and most of them won an academic one, and I said, no, let's have a women's liberation conference. So Sheila says, oh, Barbara started the women's movement in England, but I didn't, but it's in her books. But we've stayed very, very good friends, and I friends with stayed friends with people in England. And the conference in Oxford made the front page of the New York Times. It was a very big deal. It was originally going to be held at Ruskin, this college, socialist college at Oxford, but it got so big that we met in the Oxford Union. And
you're the first women in the Oxford Union?
And if you go into the Oxford Union, there were all these busts of men, and we put kerchiefs and mops over their heads. I mean, we just, you know, as I was saying earlier, I mean, there's that moment which, you know, makes it really wonderful. A group of women did some graffiti that said "Down with penile servitude," and you know, I mean, that began the women's movement.